Hi, everyone. Welcome to Solution Heroes, the show where we dive deep with leaders shaping the future of solution engineering. I'm Chris Mabry, solution engineer, solutions leader, ex-general manager of PreSales Collective, and the vice president of solutions at Reprise. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Rachel Tilghman, senior area vice president of solution consulting Americas at Braze. That's a mouthful. You're running strategic pre-sales efforts across North and South America. She's a member of Chief, PreSales Collective, What Has She Not Done, a force to be reckoned with. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. You and I connected a few years ago when I reached out to you because I saw all the good work you were doing, and I was like, Rachel, I'm going to pick your brain. How how in the world are you leading such an advanced solutions team? And I learned a ton from you then.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's been a wild ride. And it's crazy to think I've been at Braze for three going on 4 years now. It feels both like an incredibly short period of time and also a whole lifetime and
Yeah,
career
yeah.
worth of learnings in, pre-sales specifically. So it's been a wild ride.
They say it's a journey for a reason. Um, because we're gonna open up all the proactive and tip of the spear stuff you're doing at Braze with solutions. But my first curiosity is about go to market trends. So you've seen a lot come and go. I'm sure you've tried a ton. What go to market or pre-sales trends are you most excited about today that others might be sleeping on? So where should pre-sales leaders be focusing their energy right now?
Yeah, I think the next iteration of buying is happening right now. So what I mean by that is, software sales is such a rapidly changing industry. I think we've had these methodologies, everybody has like a med pick or value selling or some sort of framework. I think we're on the cusp of some sort of new and evolving framework if someone's not already writing that book right now. And the reason I say that is because our buyers are so much more informed than they were. Buying software used to be something that like a procurement person did maybe a couple of times a year. It used to be something that maybe in your career you would buy software maybe a couple of times. And now, as you think about it, I mean, you and I don't know how many apps do you have on your phone? How many times have you renewed your Canva subscription? Like, we as individuals are buying software constantly and we are buying subscriptions constantly. And so the motion of, oh, what am I buying when I'm buying software as a service has totally become democratized, as well as the amount of information that's out there, how people can be educated about it, where they can do their research, they can plug in your competitors to ChatGPT. And so all of those things, that the trusted advisor component for us as like an educator or a demoer or someone who is telling you and showing you, that whole world has just completely flipped upside down. And for the better, I think. But I also would say you're sleeping on it if you're not saying, what do I need to be doing differently? Like, what is that evolution going to look like?
Well said, Rachel. And I couldn't agree more. I can't buy anything without doing a ton of research on it today. Our customers, buyers, prospects are no different.
Yeah.
Um, One of the hard things I find is we're in a new world where the solution engineer is more powerful than ever, and yet it's tough to turn a big ship, right?
Yeah.
So if your team is large and you've been going the market the way you've been going the market, it's hard to change behavior. If you're in a fast, scrappy startup, you're doing it already. So it's almost like if you're a big organization, the startup tools are going to start picking off your customers because they can change culture quickly. Braze isn't the smallest organization, so any tips on how to push change in an organization that's large?
Oh, wow. Well, someone who literally did a reorg this morning. Email went out before we got on. Change management is something that I have become so intimately familiar with, especially change management at like this level of leadership where I feel like I'm seeing all the pieces. I'm trying to make the right decisions. I could, I mean, go on for a very long time about this, but I think what I think about is I kind of, my personal framework is kind of in three parts. One is, um, what is the problem I'm actually trying to solve with this change? And like, does everybody agree that that's the problem? Do I have the credibility to go make this decision? And then do I have the courage to go just make the decision and live with it for a minute? And so those are all things that I think you need to not be afraid to make a hard decision. I think you need to be able to also treat it like an experiment or a hypothesis. Like I have a very like scientist mindset towards even things like org design, where it's like, I have a hypothesis. I think it's going to solve this problem. I think I have all the inputs. Here's the solution that I'm going to put forward. We have to go just do it, see what works, see what the hypothesis, what results it yields. I have to have some sort of measurement tool to do that. And if it's the right hypothesis, great, we keep it. And if it's the wrong one, I need to know what levers to go pull and how to iterate on the experiment. And I think that mentality, like what I see a lot of times are people are like, they might have the right answer, but they don't have the courage to just say, I'm just going to go execute this. I'm going to measure against it, and I'm willing to be wrong about it. Like I'm willing to say, oops, I made a mistake. Actually, this needs to be done differently. Here's the data that backs that up. I think that's actually probably the hardest things we do as leaders. And I think the other piece is building the credibility to go make those like bigger, harder decisions so that they feel, so that your organization has some level of trust in you when you need to go, whether it's rip the Band-Aid off or try something totally different. So when you're in a small organization, the credibility is easy because there's less people to go build it with. And everybody has more of an experiment mindset. But as you get bigger in organizations, that means your credibility foundation has to grow exponentially. But it also means the bravery, the courage that it takes to say, I'm going to go make this really big decision is also 10 times harder. And you have to prepare yourself for that to say, have I seen around every corner? Have I thought about this that way?
You mentioned there should be a new book on sales and going to market. I feel that if you're listening to this and you want Rachel's playbook or template or this process written down, because that was one of the most tactical, I'm trying to grab a notebook as I'm talking to you moments, and I want to copy what you just said. So maybe the result of this conversation is like a easy template to follow this process.
Yeah. Okay.
I've gone
Maybe I'll
through.
go write my book then.
There are a lot of books with a lot less in it. I'll tell you that much. That's very inspiring. You've answered a lot of interesting questions that I have on influence, because in solutions, and we all have this challenge, which is we are the hub and spoke to go to market and product and development and engineering and customer success. And a lot of our influence and impact on the business is hard to measure. A lot of it is the quality side of the house and not the quantitative side of the house. I would love to hear, like, how do you measure your last bit on how to measure it and actually understand your impact? How do you measure something like, I want my solution engineers to do on-sites instead of they want to do one customer on-site instead of do 10 demos that day?
Sure. I mean, I think the measure, I'm a big like SMART goals person. And I think the biggest thing you can do is get specific and measurable. Those are the two like hardest things, but if you can kind of wrap your arms around it. So I always like take it back from like, okay, what am I trying to solve for? Then what would the output look like? So I'm a big like leading indicator, not lagging indicator person. I hate measuring on like, oh, well, like the return on that was great. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful. Like that's the output. So I want to be able to clearly separate like what's the output that I need to be able to say, oh, let's take your example, right, of 10 virtual demos or one on-site. So I could look at traditional metrics, things like the size of the deal, the time to close, do we think that there's an upsell opportunity down the road. Like, are you in a land and expand where you might sell a little deal that then balloons into $1 million deal? So we could take some of those factors into account, and I would absolutely include that in my hypothesis. I think the other piece that I try to look at is how am I using my team's time in a way that's like meaningful? So not to have like an internal NPS score, but I also look at like, is this a good use of their time? Why? How? Could AI do it? So in this situation, the immediate thing my mind goes to is like right now, so far, as far as I know, we do not have little AI robots running around doing whiteboarding sessions and like meeting customers in person. So that's a thing that I need to solve for that AI can't. So how can I offload those 10 demos virtually to a, automated, whether it's AI or just some sort of automation at some level? And then is that efficiency impactful? So that's a question I have, is just because it was efficient doesn't necessarily mean it was the right thing to do. So I'm putting all these metrics down, and then I'm kind of stack ranking like which ones are going to actually prove a meaningful outcome. But then it's not just me saying like, oh, well, I think that ACV and efficiency are the top two metrics. I'm actually shopping that around. So when you talk about building influence, it's like, it's not just that like I built the influence and then I go sit in a tower and I make all the decisions by myself. It's okay, well, these are the metrics that I'm going to use to say this would be successful. Is this how you would define success? And making sure that I'm getting buy-in across the business on those things. And ultimately, that consensus building is going to give me the top 3 metrics that I'm going to go use to run that experiment of whether we should focus on, 1 on-site or 10 virtual demos.
Yeah, well said. I'm in the thick of it, Rachel. I'm right there with you making these changes. And I once had a good mentor say, if we're not making change in the business, what is management for? So what are you doing if you're managing teams and you're not making change in the business? And I think that's a very interesting perspective. If you can look back and think like what is the influence you're putting on the business? What change are you promoting to help the business grow? You got to have answers to those things quarter after quarter.
Oh, totally. I do also think I would maybe amend or add maybe an asterisk to that, in that I look at like providing stability through change as like the actual, like that's kind of the other, because you can't do change if you don't have some level of stability. So to me, it's like, what am I changing and what am I stabilizing are on either ends of a balance beam.
Yeah, well said. So this puts the solution engineering way above the solution engineering org that is seen as a demo team or a whiteboard team or a walkthrough team. I've been on solution teams that started as implementation teams, and you're like, this is not solutions engineering. So when you think about like where a solution engineering organization would fit in an org chart, what's your starting point? Do you look at like company size, the go-to-market motion, the product complexity? What's some of the things you would assess to place solution engineering there?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's what are you solving for your customers? Because there's some orgs where the solutions organization, especially if we're talking about the evolution of a solutions organization, it's very customer centric. And so the questions I like to ask myself are like, are we talking enterprise customers or commercial and SMB customers? Are we talking a product that's an inch deep and a mile wide? Or are we talking about something that has low surface area but goes 10 miles deep into the earth in terms of technical depth? And then what does that actually mean for your customers? So if you're an inch deep and a mile wide, the number one customer concern is, am I getting the most bang for my buck? Am I using everything I've paid for? Those are kind of the questions that I'm asking myself if I'm in their seat. Same can be true for something that's incredibly technically deep, but typically when you see something technically deep, it's a much more tactical, like, how do I do this? Or is this the best way of doing this? Type question that you're getting from your customers. So then designing an org around those questions, I think is kind of the way to think about it. I think there's also, then I would make the decision, am I value selling or am I a product-led growth function? I actually feel like Braze is in a unique spot where we're kind of both, which I I see value in both. Up market, we're much more value led, and down market, we are much more product led growth, because Braze is so easy to use that, like, a single business owner, like a CEO of a startup, can send out an email himself or herself if they want to. And so that puts us in a really unique predicament to know, like, kind of which levels to pull when. But I think for me in particular, it also means that I've learned a lot about how to design the solutions functions based on, like, where you are with your customer.
Right. You're approaching it with curiosity. You're approaching it with asking questions, which is really cool. Um, I'm on the same. I agree with you on the PLG versus value, and having an organization that has a little bit of both, because as I'm a go-to-market nerd, I love go-to-market strategy stuff. I think that there's a ton of value in human-to-human connection. Less value in an AI SDR that's spam botting everybody. More value in on-site, real, genuine relationships, genuinely people making customers successful, which kind of goes against a lot of the PLG side. But at the same time, people want to see product right away. They want to see themselves in the product right away. They want to see their story in the product, not like fourth demo in. They want to see it like immediately, So back to buying behavior, it's almost like we have to blend the two.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to the reason they want to is because that's how everything else in their world is. You get a, 10-day free trial of HBO Max. You get, a 1 month free of Canva. Like, you can, those are all things that you're getting access at before it provides you value, to see if it provides you value. And then they're also kind of banking in those situations on whether or not you'll forget that Apple Pay is automatically going to, you know, subtract. We're not quite in that situation. But I still think that the experience component, and so then our role needs to shift to much more of a validation and the make it real components of relating, like, what you think and what actually needs to happen, and then kind of connecting, like bridging the gap between those.
Yeah, the value of HBO is clear when we're watching The Gilded Age, which is what we're watching right now, and it's so relaxing. You're like, oh, I forgot about my world.
Right.
But when I get the notification from Apple that I've been paying for extra storage I didn't know I was paying for, it's kind of like, dang it, how did
Yeah.
that even happen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think it's those moments, and then also the amount of noise that we're living in. Like, I think people want to experience something faster because of, it's their way of cutting through the noise of everything else that's going on. I actually don't think that's true. I think it's kind of the average buyer is trying to solve for something that they don't know is happening to them, but that's like a deep psychological problem for you to walk through with them, and is hard to do at scale, which I think is where the role of solutions consulting still becomes incredibly relevant, even as things become more automated.
I did a event last year where one of the panelists said that sales is a moment of crisis for your buyer. Your buyer is in a moment of crisis, and they need a solution and they need a tool to solve a problem. It's easy for us to forget that they're in that moment, and that it's our job to help them. And it's our job to help them understand how to be successful with these tools, because we know more about them than they do, right? It's easy to jump into demos, but it's hard to remember, oh, there is a moment of crisis. We need to walk them through it. We need to be understanding. We need to understand their process, their timeframes.
Yeah. Well, and even, I mean, I would say good sales cycles have a moment of crisis. The worst are the tire kickers, which still
Yes.
exist. Um, but I think there's still something to be said then, like, okay, well, how can you, at least identify which one of those moments you're in? And if you're in a moment of crisis, what you're actually trying to do is yeah, be that validation point for them and be that kind of guidepost. But then I would also say, like, my other advice to people who find themselves in these tire kicker scenarios are, like, fine, create the moment of crisis. Like, you do this enough, you see enough crises. How do you say, well, that's weird that you're just looking around. Are you sure you don't have this problem? Are you sure you haven't looked under here? And then you're actually, like, right in the kind of middle of how to actually get something done.
That's a great tip. Um, what I think when I think of this, I think of people, and you can see within demos or proof of concepts, people shift um, from moment of crisis to science experiment.
Hmm.
And you see people start to shift from, well, what if it did this? And it would be cool if it did this. And, it's kind of the nature of our role.
Yeah.
Um, we have to reel them in and remember that we're not here for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few ways that Braze is different. Um, and I've mentioned that I consider Braze the organization you're running being really like at the forefront of solutions thought and processes. What's unique about how you do it there? Any roles or responsibilities that would make other SE leaders go, that's interesting.
I mean, I think I don't know if it's, I've grown up, so to speak, in solutions consulting, in specifically selling marketing technology software. So my sample size is definitely not vast, and I am not naive to that. But one thing I do think is unique is our different audiences that we sell to. I think a lot of solutions consultants sell to very technical audiences. And that is definitely like one side of the house. We have to talk to product engineering, IT folks, and that's a huge portion of our sales cycle. The other piece that I find so unique and honestly like what kind of keeps me engaged is that we also sell to marketers and creatives and brand people and strategists that don't want to be bothered with the technology side of it. And so to do that, that means we need a solutions consultant that can bridge the kind of it's, and then also on top of that, you have the executives, which I think every cycle has, right? You have the business side. So it's almost like we have these kind of three very distinct buckets where marketers want to be creative and run this brand campaign. The business says, okay, but what's the ROI going to be? And then the technical team says, is this going to hook up to my internal systems? Like, are you going to pass my infosec review? Like, and then also, what do you mean speed, scale? Also, by the way, we've been building this ourselves for 10 years. So there's a lot of different audiences in those moments. And so to have a solutions consultant that isn't just technical or isn't just business minded, but can also be creative is a really unique, like left brain, right brain combo. That I think is partially like we do a lot of recruiting for that. And then we also do a lot of enabling and teaching and developing in that. Because if you have everybody is more left or right. And so then we try to kind of augment or build teams that, even each other out. And we can't have someone that's like so far technical that can't also relate to a marketer. Like that just simply won't come off. Just like we can't have someone that's like so creative that it's not actually rooted in reality of, hey, these are the APIs that I need to call to get this done. And so I think that's a really unique place to sit in between. And I think it's also what makes the job so challenging. It also very much gives you some insight into how we think about designing our teams, our organizations, our profile of who we hire for. And I think it means that we're leveraging a lot of the automation. It means we're leveraging a lot of our platform's also really easy to demo. Like we teach all of our AEs how to demo it. Now, whether or not they actually are demoing it is a different story, but like in theory, every AE at Braze could demo. And so the first demo, the teaser, the hey, I want to see something, we can check that box like very easily without any additional setup. It's then kind of the layer that becomes, when do I need a SolCon, is that trifecta of those other three things that I mentioned, as well as the critical thought that is required to bridge all of those connections and really kind of help be that guidepost.
Right, right. Would it be fair to say that most of your solutions demos, the prospect has already seen the demo before or the product, and it's like more of a specialist kind of call?
I would say honestly, I hate to be like sometimes, but honestly, it's a little bit of a middle ground answer, because even yesterday I was in an on-site with someone who was like, oh, I've seen the platform before, but half the people in the room hadn't. And so that's, a really unique. And even when he was like, yeah, I've seen the platform before, but now I have all these questions. Like the first time he saw it was that dopamine hit, like, oh, could I see myself using this? The second time he saw it, he was like, oh, I need to go think about all these 10 things. And now it's like we're making it so real. He's actually starting the change management process in his mind, which is great. But now I have 10 other people who just saw it for the first time in a 4-hour onsite. And now I need to like get them up to where he's at. And so I would say like people have seen, like they may have seen a video or an intro demo, but to actually see it realized is that very much is still a critical part of the sales cycle, that like where the solutions consultant and the specialist piece of it comes in. I would say the only like true specialists that we're experimenting right now with are some of the verticalizations, just because to have industry credibility in like financial services or retail, you really need like deep expertise in that vertical. And we're getting to the point where that's become really critical.
That makes a ton of sense. Are you using, my mind goes immediately to tooling and AI, and how are you leveraging the modern landscape to get some of this done? So where's your team's actual journey like integrating AI into this?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a very like innovative approach, and I want to give a big nod to our CTO and CEO, both Bill and John, our co-founders of Braze, have had a big like use AI. Like there has not been a kind of like hold up and only use this tool. So that's been a huge blessing, because our team has kind of carte blanche to say, "Ooh, I have an idea. I want to go see if I can build it." So that's been hugely impactful, and we're definitely leveraging those. We also have a demo engineering and a demo strategy team that builds and maintains a lot of tools that allow us to make it real for customers. And it's not because we can't build it, but it's because we're trying to find efficiencies in the way that like, okay, well, if a person over here is building this tool with ChatGPT, and someone over here is using Gemini, and then someone over here is using Claude, and then we have a tool internally that we've built to do this, how are we bringing those things together and saying, okay, here's like your library of resources, and really making sure that they're available, so that we're not just building and innovating, but we're also, kind of striking the right balance of efficiency and thoughtfulness in how we experiment with what works in the market.
I'm finding that many of the people I talk to at Reprise who use the tool are building the same thing. There's a demo team, and they're building what one of our customers calls is the Netflix of demos, right?
Okay.
So they're building like this
Library.
deep library where, because like you said, the AEs can do the very first pass, and then there's the on-sites or the integration type workflows, but then there's this next category of storytelling, of understanding the market and the vertical, of doing deep level integrations that maybe not everybody has access to, that these demo teams are designing and building and then enabling the organization on.
And I think that is the piece that I think we're all trying to kind of figure out. And like sometimes it feels like we've struck gold, and then other times I'm like, oop, that's not working. And what I mean by that is that so many of our customers think there's special snowflakes, and there is a lot of special like things that need to be addressed out there, but there's also a lot of things where this play can now be run elsewhere. How do I make sure that play gets made its way around the organization? And not to bring us full circle, but to me that's a lot of change management. Like that's a lot of especially at a bigger organization, you have to have really good internal communication to be able to say, here's what's working, let's go do it. I can give you a really tactical example of that. I actually started this at the beginning of this quarter. I noticed that our meetings, like even from an AE and from a SolCon perspective, like we had wildly different quality of customer meetings. Sometimes they were very Braze branded. Sometimes they were really looking and feeling like the customer. Sometimes, we're using the general deck. Sometimes people are going out there making their own deck. I'm all for like, go do what you need to do to get the deal done. but we weren't centralizing best practices. And so I started these, they're called mic drop meeting office hours, and they're every Monday. The whole company got invited by a series of like 20 people showing up to the first one, and like word kind of spread. That's actually my biggest tactical tip, is if you need to get something done in a large organization, keep it a secret, and then everyone will do it. Like if you like make something a secret, keep it hush hush, and word will spread like wildfire. If you try to do like a big organizational announcement and tell everybody, people are like, yeah, whatever. So keep secrets, good secrets. So anyway, this was a secret. Now 400 people are on this invite. But it's these office hours where we bring in an inspiration of like why this meeting was good or is going to be good, like what makes it good, and then we break down the different elements of it. And it's 30 minutes long, and it covers everything from how to open a meeting, close a meeting, have a demo agenda, tie it back to the problems we're solving. Some of it's like kind of meeting 101 stuff, but it's just been a really like fun, tactical way to say, hey guys, like here's an example of what good looks like. Apply it to your work. It's intended that the first 15 minutes are some sort of inspiration. We share some sort of best practice. And then the last 15 minutes, I open it up to anybody and workshop it. Like I'm literally like, you have a deck, you have a problem, you have a customer meeting coming up, like lay it on me. What do we got? Because there is a formula to this. And I think people are also starting to see that like, you don't have to, like, there's some things that can be replicated. Like not everything has to start from scratch. So yeah, that's been like a combo of some of the things that we're doing.
You know, back a couple companies ago, we had this solution engineer. We'll just say her name's Ashley, and she was the best at demoing, and she was the best at closing. She was the best at being the strategic advisor with the AE. And what we tried to do is we tried to copy as many Ashleys as we could and say, okay, you have to do the Ashley demo. Yeah, and we actually started to enable on this. Like, here's the Ashley demo. You have to do it like this. This is, you know, put your own flair on it and put your own spin on it. But a lot of that was like manual work. It was listening live on demos and understanding what they're doing on site. Now we actually have a lot of metrics at our hands that tell us which meetings were more successful as managers. We can actually get analytics and say, no, I know this meeting is successful because the talk time between the prospect and the AE was at this ratio that we need. How are you making decisions on what good looks like? Are you using the plethora of tools and analytics? Are you doing shadowing?
Yeah, so we use Gong, and so I will look at like how much did we talk versus they talk at what point in a sales cycle. And then I also am a big believer in like different stages need different things. And so I always kind of caveat that at the beginning of these kind of office hours is like, this is early stage. Early stage, they need to talk more than us. This is mid stage. This was an RFP response. Like in an RFP response, obviously we're going to do most of the talking because you have 50 people on the line and they've given you a really clear like script that you have to hit. So being able to take like these different pieces of what good looks like and apply it to where you are in your cycle is definitely the goal. Now it's definitely complex. Like I can't say that there's a one size fits all t-shirt that I can just stuff every, deal in, nor do I want to, nor do I think that would serve the business. But yeah, we've been using metrics. I will say the one thing I don't use, I don't wait for something to be closed won. And I think that there's a couple of reasons behind that. I think a lot of times at 𝐀𝐁𝐏, you see the AE who closed the biggest deal stand on stage. And that's fabulous, right? Like we need to leave space these are some really big deals. But if you wait till something closed won, first of all, in enterprise, that could be 18 months from now. Like I could see on the other side, like how the org could look totally different by the time we know that that's what good looks like. So I have to use other ways to explain this is what success looks like. And even if the meeting was successful, but the war isn't. So I look at it as like a battle versus the war. I can still say like in this battle, we did this awesome. Now we might not win the war. Like it might come down to legal and like they have some crazy term that no one's going to agree to, but that doesn't mean that the meeting wasn't successful. It doesn't mean the battle that we just fought wasn't successful. And so that's the one thing that I refuse to use as a metric of what good looks like. And I can tell it's a little difficult for sales leaders sometimes they're like, no, I don't want to, I'm superstitious. I don't want to like preach how great this meeting was until we close the deal. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like, if this individual battle made progress, we need to go do more of those battles. And like, we will eventually win the war. And like, that is kind of my orientation towards how I pick what good looks like.
We have to do that in solutions because we, like you said, we can't count on opportunity. It's so easy for us because it's the only, it's one of the biggest metrics captured by the company is, revenue influenced, opportunity close rate, win rates. A lot of us lean on the tech one side of it to try to claim that stake and say, this is what we did. We won, even though the op closed. How do you measure what winning looks like in a meeting? To me, it's very hard to understand. It's hard to separate the two and then to measure what a successful meeting looks like so that you could pick to enablement. What are some of your criteria?
Yeah. Biggest thing is, did we hit the objectives that we set out to, right? Like when you start a meeting and you say, here's what we're trying to accomplish today. And then at the end of the meeting, you say, did we accomplish that? Success criteria. Like literally, did we do what we said we were going to do? And did the customer agree to those things? Like, did they enter into a verbal contract with us at the beginning that says, yes, if you can show me these things, and at the end I tell you, yes, you showed me those things, check. Like that baseline success. I look at things like how engaged are they? I also consider how many meetings did this meeting get us as a key element of success. So if we left the meeting and they're like, yep, well, we'll talk to you later, Chris. That's the next step in our RFP process. Our procurement person will be in touch in 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, we might have moved the needle a little bit. We maybe moved it 1%. If we leave that meeting, even in a locked RFP process, and I have people reaching out to me on the side, I have the CMO responding to my email, I have, someone saying like, oh yeah, procurement, like, yeah, we'll get there. But like, I need to talk to you about this first. That is a successful meeting. Like if it's given me 10 more threads to go weave into the overall deal, I don't care what the RFP process is. So those are some of the things that I look for. I think the other things that I look for are a little bit more like tangible internally as well. Like if I last gave, and this is a little bit more personal, but like if I gave a SoulCon feedback that, hey, I need you to ask better discovery questions. And in that meeting, they ask good discovery questions, success. Like I'm going to celebrate that. If I gave an AE feedback that they needed to close the meeting better and they have a really kind of like good ask at the end of the meeting, success. So I think it depends on like also what I'm solving for. And specifically in these kind of mic drop meeting office hours, I'm breaking down every element of a meeting and I'm just saying, here's what a good opening looks like. We're going to spend 30 minutes on that. Next meeting, here's what a good close looks like. We're going to spend 30 minutes on that. So I will also identify individual components of a meeting, even if maybe the meeting overall wasn't, a shining beacon. I'll just make it really clear, like this is the piece that I want to celebrate. Right.
You know what I'm hearing in this is the solutions consulting at Braze is multi-threaded, big time. You're talking to me about executive sponsorship. You're talking to me about all the channels in which people are communicating with you to give you buying intent or next, buying process intent. You're talking about so many things outside of the general solution engineering job description that are, in my opinion, they're crucial. I've always thought they have been crucial. I think business acumen is a huge part of our role. But I think that it's getting much, much more important to understand how to move the needle, like what's important in a buying process. How do companies work? If you should share with me after this, share the SE job description if you're hiring right now, and I want to see the layout of this description because that it's tough to put all that on paper.
I think the other thing I'll shout out, because I will say that you asked a question earlier about like how do you become more of a strategic partner and less of a like demo I hate to say demo monkey, but I hear that all the time in our industry, right? Where you just show up and you give a demo, right? Like we can absolutely do that. But I think as you look at like AI, like AI will become the demo monkey. So then it's like, okay, well, what am I doing to be multi-threaded into this account? What am I doing to provide technical leadership so that the sales team can provide commercial leadership? Like, how are we kind of working together to orchestrate both of those things? Um, those are things that I'm looking for uh, to be able to kind of up level the org outside of, hey, we're just someone who comes and gives you a demo. Because yeah, there will probably be a day where that you can click on a bunch of prompts and it gives you a custom demo. Fine. So then it becomes like, okay, well then are we the validation point? And to me, that's actually like the validation and the critical thinking. And then I think there's a level of storytelling too, but I would argue that like ChatGPT can probably storytell a fair amount. Like I've seen some stuff. So then it's okay, well what are those other things that we want to make sure that we're not missing?
Yeah. You're landing it perfectly. Like customers that are people who are in the market using a lot of tools to give demos are leaning into the fact that a demo is not just a presentation, it's a process.
Yes.
There's a presentation. If I could send you a video, that's one thing. People maybe not watch it, so they want to do it live. But it's not just a one-way presentation. It's a full process you're walking somebody through.
Yes, exactly.
You know, you're taking that moment of crisis, you're learning more about it, you're validating the problems, you're getting the clear buy-in, the very tight scope to say, you know, verbal contract. If we were to solve these 2 to 3 things you're having trouble with, is that enough for you to move forward? Do you want a tool to help you do that?
Yep.
And then at the very end, you circle back and you say, I've shown you X, Y, Z. Those are the things we agreed upon when we first met. That is something that a good solution engineer is doing.
Yeah.
In my mind.
And that's kind of so maybe I'm coming up with the title of my book. I've long said this, but to me the evolution is consensus building. Like that's the thing that I think AI is can be a tool to, but like will AI actually bring people together? Actually, if you look at it, AI is actually fragmenting people when you look at like how it's creating these silos in our society. And then we could get very deep and philosophical about that. So then it's like, okay, to combat that, I am the consensus builder.
I think that is the title of your book. Maybe this entire episode was it's a way for me to take care of my friend and say, Rachel, I'm just going to give you a moment so that you can vocalize everything you're going to write about in the book.
There you go.
I'll give you the transcript and then you'll just let AI write the rest.
There we go. I appreciate it.
Because I feel like the beginning was when you went into change management is so crucial. I mean, I deal with this all the time, which is I'm certainly the type to get excited about making a lot of change. I do want to make it consumable and sustainable. So I am empathetic to people who are in change. But change management it's not easy. And especially with a solutions focus, I think you've got a hit on your hands.
Thanks. Well, and I think there's a big piece to it that the people are at like the core for me, in that like good change management takes care of people. And I think that that's the piece that like, if I'm making the right decisions, people might not like change because they don't like change, but at their core, they feel not like totally left out in the cold. And like, that's something that I can't pretend that I do it perfectly every time. Like I don't. But it is something that I ask myself is like, how is this going to affect the community that we've built internally here? And if I can't answer that question, then I'm not ready to press play. And so those are kind of some of the things that, you know, there's a hypothesis, there's a scientific method behind it. And then if it's a good scientific method, it'll hold up to the people it needs to support.
Well, I was going to ask you a question if you had any final thoughts, but we're going to land the plane right there. I think that's the best way to wrap this conversation up. I've been following you for a while. I'm so glad we did this. I'm so glad to be in your circle. If people want to connect with you or follow your work, where's the best place to find you?
Yeah. LinkedIn is great. Although I can't say I'm on top of my LinkedIn DMs right now, so be patient, be kind. But LinkedIn, or shoot me an email. Also takes me a couple of business days. I used to be super on top of those things, but I love to connect with people, and I do think also like find me at a pre-sales collective event. Like I still pop into dinners here and there where I can. I am a little off the beaten path, but I make this horrible joke that I live on an airplane and I vacation at my home in Savannah on the weekends. So I'm probably in a city near you and more than happy to connect or grab a coffee as well. I love that in-person piece of it.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, this is exactly the strategic thinking that's elevating us as a profession. So thank you so much. My biggest takeaway so far on the fly is your comment, good change management takes care of people. And for those listening, it's Rachel Tilghman. There's a G and an H in there, but forget about those 2 letters. Reach out to Rachel. Do not be shy. Please, if you've listened, you've already done 99% of the work. You are investing in yourself. Please go share this. Share this with a friend. Share this on LinkedIn. Reach out to Rachel. Say thank you so much. She's a very busy person. She put her time and effort into this. I'm thankful, and share your thanks as well. To our Solution Heroes community, thank you for tuning in. If it sparked something, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Don't forget to share the episode with SE leaders who need to hear Rachel's insights and thoughts. Until next time, keep solving, keep growing, keep connecting with the humans to solve their problems. Thank you.